Okay, so at the end of a semester of school, there's a test. At the end of a year of work, there's an annual review. And at the end of our lives, there's Judgment Day. Brothers and sisters, because we're all going to be judged, we might want to figure out, I want to know, did I complete my task? Did I live my mission? This gospel today has some good insights into what it takes to do that. What is the Lord? What does the king here in this parable value? You might think hard work, but I think it's kind of hard work to bury money. I don't know if you've ever hidden something before, but you have to kind of make it look like you didn't just dig up some things and then pile a bunch of money in the ground and bury it over. Some animal could come and dig it up. There's a lot of work in choosing where to bury it, digging a hole, things like that. I don't think the servant was that lazy. You might think that he didn't make a good return on investment. And for some people, where ROI matters, you might think that, yeah, this guy is not very successful or ambitious. But I don't think that's what the Lord criticizes him for either. He doesn't really say to the other people, hey, you made so much money, 100% on my investment. Thank you so much. He just says, good and faithful servant. Brothers and sisters, the Lord prizes faithfulness, not necessarily hard work, not return on investment, but faithfulness. And maybe I could put that in another way. The Lord prizes people who do his will. It wasn't that the wicked and lazy servant didn't do anything. He did actually do something. He just didn't do what his master wanted. And that was a problem. I think all of you would say the same. Who here, who has an employee or a staff member, would appreciate if that employee or staff member spent 40 hours doing something you didn't ask them to do and didn't actually do the thing you asked them to do? Wouldn't that not be a case for firing them? The same is true for us. If we don't actually do what God wants us to do, it won't matter what we did if we didn't actually do what we were supposed to do. So, brothers and sisters, faithfulness is a real value in this gospel, a real value in reality in our lives, in our relationship with God. And I guess as a vocation director, I wish that everybody in this archdiocese would know that. So you might think I just work with people who are trying to discern where they should commit their lives, where they should give a gift to themselves, marriage, priesthood, religious life, something like that, the convent. But I work with everyone. In some ways, we would love to see what we call a culture of vocational discernment. And maybe I'll just put it this way. I would love to see a culture of people doing God's will, trying to figure out what does God want so I can do it day in and day out. Just because you're married doesn't make you exempt from doing God's will or discerning. That's a daily activity because I don't know what God wants for you today. I don't know what he's asking of you today. But if you don't figure that out, at the end of your life, what are you going to show God that you did with this day? So, brothers and sisters, it's really important that everybody here figure out what is God's will. So you can do it, and you can make an A on the report card. You can do well in your annual examination, and when you get before the judgment seat, you can show the Lord your faithfulness. Let me say something else. I'm just going to add this on. I realize it's like two homilies in one. Sometimes, it's a little hard to figure out, how do I figure out God's will? What is God's will? What does that even look like in my life? It's a long story. Our office has a lot of retreats. Sorry, they're only for single young adults and people in high school. But I think you could find a lot of podcasts, or there's probably a whole YouTube channel out there dedicated on discernment of God's will, how to do that. There's resources out there. But let me just say this. I would warn people who are trying to figure out God's will by interior peace. I think sometimes that can be a little misleading. Sometimes people will say well, Father, I was trying to figure out if I should switch jobs or move companies, and I wrestled with it for days, and then and then I decided, and I felt a lot of peace. That's kind of a little backwards from the way it's supposed to be. Let me explain it in a different way. Like, let's say I had this spiritual proposal that I'm going to pray a rosary every day. And you know what? At some point in my life, I go through this season of dryness, and I'm really wrestling to pray that rosary every day. I've got a lot of stuff to do. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I need to go to bed because I have to wake up at 5 a.m. tomorrow, and I haven't prayed my rosary. Well, what if I just decided not to do it and went to bed and felt a lot of peace? Because all the temptation that was telling me to stop praying the rosary went away when I decided not to pray the rosary. You'd probably say I was not making a good decision, right? Like, just because you experience peace doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the will of God. Peace can come when you stop battling with temptation because you gave in to temptation. So brothers and sisters, maybe to say that sometimes it really takes perseverance in our proposals. If I said I was going to pray a rosary every day, I ran that by some spiritual friend or spiritual director, I should probably stick to that, even if I feel agitated and like I don't want to pray the rosary anymore. And the same is true of any decision. I find a lot of young people or old people making decisions and then feeling peace as if it were a confirmation of their decision. And I think that's a little backwards. It should actually be a different way. Sometimes you can feel peace about spiritual proposals because you're feeling peace in God, like close harmony with God. It's a little different from I made a decision and I feel okay about it. So, anyway, brothers and sisters, the Lord values faithfulness. He wants us to search for His will and do it every day. I understand that's a hard process. Like, it's not always easy to figure out what God wants, but I don't think it's that hard. A lot of us kind of know in the back of our hearts what we're called to, what God wants us to do, and sometimes we just put it off. That's hard. Brothers and sisters, I hope that everybody in this archdiocese begins to take God's will seriously, to look for it, to figure out how to look for it, and even to teach their children to look for it, so that when big decisions come, we can be faithful because we were faithful in small things and we'll be faithful in big things.